Good morning, CrossPoint Online and CrossPoint East End. My name is Austin, and I am the campus pastor for CrossPoint Online. And I am so excited that you guys are joining us today. Today's going to look a little bit different for us. For those that join us in East End, you guys come up on Thursday nights and you join us for Celebrate Recovery. And so today, as a Sunday morning worship, we are highlighting what Celebrate Recovery is doing, the ministry that they are doing. And so today, that's why Kevin is joining us, because Kevin is ministry lead for Celebrate Recovery. And so first off, Kevin, tell everybody that doesn't know, what is Celebrate Recovery?
Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program for anyone suffering from any habit, hurt, or hang-up.
Awesome. And so, and then also, tell affected you.
Yes, it solidified my two paths. My higher power is God, so it combined church and recovery for me and solidified that one path.
Awesome. And so for those that are joining us wherever they might be joining us from, is there a resource out there that they can go to that they can look up and see where Celebrate Recovery might be near to them?
Yes, you go to celebraterecovery.com. There's three lines at the top on the left. You hit that, hit group locator. You put in your zip code or your city, and it'll let you know, see our groups that are nearby.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. And for you guys, let us know in the comments where you're joining us from. Maybe you're joining us from the Dayton area, maybe from Tennessee. Last week we announced that we are about to start a new watch party in Tennessee, so maybe you're a part of that. Let us know in the comments. Also today, maybe Celebrate Recovery, wherever you are, maybe you've been to a Celebrate Recovery and it has impacted you. Let us know that in the comments as well. Otherwise, join us for worship.
Good morning, everybody. We're so glad you guys decided to join us here this morning. We invite you to stand and sing with us here.
And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. And man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied. Take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours. And all the joy I found, surrendering my crown at the feet of the King. Take this life and breathe on this heart that is yours. Amen. I invite you guys to pray with me. God, we just come before you this morning just thanking you for who you are. And saying, God, you can have it all. Every part of us, every part of our being, it's all yours. We give everything to you. And Father, before you today, we make ourselves available and alert to your presence, and just whatever you would have us do, God, I just pray that you put a burden on our heart to follow you and pursue you in your heart and what you're doing here. So we just cherish you today, and we honor you, and we lift up these songs of praise as an offering to you because you're worthy and good, and you're worthy of everything we have to do. So we thank you so much for who you are. In your name we pray. Amen. Thanks. You guys can be seated.
Well, good morning. My name is Angela, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to CrossPoint Community Church. For our viewers online and at East End campus, good morning to you also. If this is your first time visiting with us here in person or online, we want to offer an extended welcome to you, and we want to hear from you. So if you will go and download our CrossPoint Now app and hit the First Time Guest tab, we would like to for you to answer a few questions for us, and in return, we will donate $5 in your name to one of our organizations that we partner with locally. So we have a few events that are coming up here at CrossPoint. On November 1st, we will be offering our Growth Track program. So if you are feeling a calling to get deeper into your faith and you feel like you're growing more, but you want to know a little bit more what that looks like here at CrossPoint, then Growth Track is the perfect program for you. So on November 1st, if you would like to come out and express your what you would like to do with that, that would be great. We also have on October 23rd from 6 to 7:30 p.m., we are partnering with the Y again for their Trunk or Treat. This is going to be a COVID-friendly event and a good way to allow our little ones to still experience trick-or-treating, but with that COVID over us. So if you feel like that is something that you would like to help with also, there is a sign-up sheet at the welcome desk, or you can send us a message online. And we need help decorating trunks and, of course, candy. So make sure that you all sign up for that. Today, I'm especially excited that we are extending our celebration of Celebrate Recovery's 2-year anniversary. This has been an amazing program for us, and we just continue to grow, and our community needs this, so we continue to ask for your support in this. And there's been so many individuals whose lives have been changed, who have been improved, who have just been experiencing just so many great life moment changes for them in healing their hurts, habits, and hangups through the CR program. Today's message is being brought to us by Tammy. She's not here, but she left us a little video message, and I'm sure that it is filled with plenty of knowledge and inspiration for us today. So I am going to turn it over to Tammy.
Well, good morning, CrossPoint. It is so good to be here with you. I'm sorry I can't be here live, but I want to introduce you to somebody that has just entered the earth. And I want to introduce you to my new grandson, Crew Alan David Conrad. And he came to be with us October 1st, and I am with him this morning. And so thank you so much. Brandon and Caitlin had this beautiful baby boy. There were some issues, so those that prayed for us and prayed for Crew, we are so grateful for that. It was so nice to know that we had our church family backing us. And so we are grateful for that. So thank you. Right now, I am sure I am holding this beautiful baby, but I'm sorry I am not with you this morning. Because today we are celebrating 2 years with Celebrate Recovery, and that is super exciting. It has been 2 years of growth and learning and relearning, and it has been great. And the stories that have come out have just been amazing. So for all of those that have been praying for us, that have been a part of what we're doing, we greatly appreciate it. But I kind of wanted to start off today just having a little bit of fun, because there's also some misconceptions about what Celebrate Recovery is. And so I thought we could have a little fun with that. And this is what we did Thursday night, and we're just going to share that with you. So I just walked into CR. Should I stay or should I go? Some of these people look a little weird. Look at that guy with that beard. So I need to figure out, should I stay or should I go? It's always me, me, me. I don't know who I'm supposed to be. I have some things to work out. But what is this place all about? So I need to figure out, should I stay or should I go? Little ditty about Jack and Coke. It's the way I deal with things until I get stoked. I don't care what you think. Oh man, I think I stink. Anybody got a mint? Gum? Anything? Oh yeah, life goes on long after the last of the glass is gone. Oh yeah, what happens next? I guess I'll just stay in the state of perplexed. Gotta finish with the 80s ballad. Now being without you takes a lot of getting used to. Should learn to live without it. What about you? Anxiety and stress. I just want to eat cake as much as I want it. It would be a big mistake. I'm addicted to you, babe. These are hard habits to break. These are hard habits to break. That was fun. We had a lot of fun with that, so thank you. Because there are some misconceptions of what Celebrate Recovery is. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today, about what Celebrate Recovery has done for me. And so I want to ask you this question as I start. What or who has shoplifted your hope? What or who has shoplifted your hope? What has created hurts, habits, hang-ups in your life? Has it been impossible people? I mean, you don't know the family I have or the work situation I have. Or has it been impossible situations? You do not know what I am facing this week. I mean, it is crazy. You have no idea. Overwhelming hurt or grief. I mean, health situations, death. Oh, so many things that just overwhelming or overcome with anger of your situation, or anxiety or worry, and all of these things just crashing out and just trying to shoplift your hope. Because when all of these things are happening, or some of these things are happening, this is when we go to our coping mechanisms. How do we cope with this lack of hope in our lives? And so some of the things that we turn to, they're not bad. They're good things like books, TVs, movies, fun, going out for fun. I've used Topgolf for this for several times. Those kind of things like exercise, friends, all of those things. And they're not bad. But when we do those to excess, then they can replace what should be hope in other areas. We'll get to that. Some things can be a little worse, and they can destroy us just a little bit more. Things that we use to cope, like food. I eat my feelings. Shopping. Just getting away. I've got to get away, or running away, avoiding, worry, control, perfectionism. Life is chaos, so I need to control this little area in my life, the people around me. And so we try to control those things and make them perfect, because that's how we need to cope in this situation. And then there are some choices that we make that can be really destructive in our lives, like pornography and affairs and alcohol and drugs, when we use them, especially some of those as a coping mechanism. Because all of these things can be ways that we are searching for hope in our lives, and we can become dependent on them as false senses of hope. But they will never satisfy. Because these things, our sense of satisfaction elevates, and we need more and more and more and more in order to try to reach our satisfaction level that we need. Because here's the deal. We were created to have intimacy with Christ. We were created for a relationship with Christ. In the beginning, God formed us. He formed us with his own hands, man and woman. He formed both with his own hands. He breathed his very breath into us to give us life. And then he put us in this perfect garden to have communion with him. But he also gives us a choice to have relationship with him. And so in the garden, he put a tree, and he said, don't eat from the tree. They ate from the tree, and sin entered the world. And our sinful nature has been controlling us ever since. And our sinful nature is going to try to continue to draw us away from this relationship with Christ into certain addictions or substitutions of hope. Ed T. Welch says this, and this is just brilliant. He says, all addictions are ultimately a disorder of worship. All addictions are ultimately a disorder of worship. So if you don't put Jesus into the biggest hole in your soul, then you will run to the wrong things and to the wrong people every time. And so we are all struggling with addictions, because there are times in our life where we have displaced worship. So what am I choosing to place in that spot that was only meant to house God? We see the writer of Psalm 42, and this psalmist, he's a son of Korah, but we see that he is kind of in this place. He is in a place of hopelessness, and he's crying out. There's chaos around him, but he starts off this in Psalm 42, and he says this: as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Where can I go and meet with God? Now, I don't know if you remember the old chorus that we used to sing like 15, 20 years ago. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul. You guys, enough? Okay. Sweet. Oh, isn't that a sweet melody? And then just that sweet deer just gently lapping the water by the stream. But that's not what I get. That's not what I get here from Psalm 42. This man is desperate. He is thirsty. And he is craving spiritual drink. He is craving God in his life. He is craving hope, and he is desperate to get it. Because what he talks about later on in the chapter and throughout the chapter is that people around him are mocking him. He's living in exile, so he's living away from his home. And he hasn't been able to sleep, and he hasn't been able to eat, and he hasn't been able to worship. He remembers how it used to be, and he hasn't been able to achieve that. He hasn't been able to be present with that. And the worship is really getting to him, physically or spiritually. And he also says, he said, chaos is crying out to chaos, and it's gonna overcome me. This is a man without hope. And he comes to this point in verse 5, and he says this, why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God. Put your hope in God, because my hope can only be found in God. Everything else, anything else that I'm trying in this world, anything else is a poor substitution. And he comes to this, the very next verse, and he says this in verse 6. My soul is downcast within me. Therefore, I will remember you. Therefore, I will remember you. The Message says that I will rehearse everything that I know about you, because that is where my hope lies. And there they have the scrolls. We have the Bible. And this book is full of how God is reaching out to give us hope. So let us go, let us rehearse, let us think about all these things, because my hope can only come from God himself, from Jesus Christ. It can only be found in God. It can't be found in my schedule, in my job, in my success. It can't be financial security. It can't be found in my marriage. My hope cannot be found in my friendships. It can't be found in my relationships or in my kids. My hope cannot be found in any of those things. It can only be found in God. And when you get to that sweet spot, when you get to that sweet spot of where you put all of your trust and all of your worship, your true worship in God, the psalmist says this, and he says this in verse 8. He goes, this is what life can be like. He said, by day, this is verse 8, by day the Lord directs his love. At night his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. By day, the Lord directs his love. Each step I take, I am firmly aware of how much God loves me. I am firmly aware of the love that he is demonstrating to me each and every moment, and the love that I need to demonstrate to others because of God's love for me. I am assured of that. I am assured of that all throughout the day. And then at night, when doubts and fears and anxiety start to creep in from the day and thinking about the next day, at night, his song is with me to soothe me, to calm me, to remind me of who he is. Isn't that a beautiful picture? I want to live like that. I mean, there's peace. There's just this relaxing presence of God's love walking with me day by day, of his song soothing me at night. And then my life becomes a prayer of God in it. And oh my goodness, I would love, that is an amazing point to be. And it starts with putting my hope in God and letting that be my true worship. Because then my identity is completely in him and who he says I am. So how do we live this life of true hope? How do we get to this utopia here of true hope and living just like what this verse describes? It's a matter of surrender. Turning over what has the power in your life. It sounds simple, but sometimes really difficult to do. Because in order to surrender, we have to know what has mastered us. What are we allowing to take that first place in our life? Owning that and being willing to let God work in this area of our life. Because when we surrender, when we turn this over to God, he is going to meet us there. I love this. The London Times asked the great English author and philosopher G.K. Chesterton. They asked him this. They asked him to write an article on the question, what is the problem of the universe? What is the problem of the universe? And he wrote back very concisely, I am, sincerely, G.K. Chesterton. I think they were looking for a little more. But this is the problem with the universe. I am. I have to take ownership of what my problems, my issues are. I can't blame them on anybody else. I can't say, well, if this situation hadn't happened, if they hadn't treated me like that, if they hadn't talked to me like that, if they had done this a little better, if they had done that, then I would not be in the situation that I am right now. Because here's the reality of life. You can only control you. You can only control you. You can't control what anyone else is doing. You can't control the situations that you come up on unless they were results of decisions you made. But the only person that you are in charge of is you. And so therefore, the buck stops here. And so that's the only thing that you can change. And you can change it by beginning to surrender. If there was a scale from 0 to 100, as we look at kind of our goodness and everything else, if there was a scale from 0 to 100, and we kind of placed the goodness of every human being on that scale, where would you put Mother Teresa? Like, she'd be a pretty good 95, right? I mean, she did a lot of really great things. Or where would you put the leader of ISIS? Like, there's no negative numbers here, but you'd probably put him at a 1. So let me ask this. Where would you put yourself? Now, I don't want you to go home and look at your spouse and say, you were a 20. Some days you were a 10. Okay, I don't want you to do that. This is just for yourself. So where would you put yourself on this scale, 0 to 100, about where you are? I mean, probably we'd put ourselves somewhere in the middle, right? Somewhere in between. I mean, if we did this daily, it would kind of fluctuate a little bit, but we'd always kind of stay somewhere in the middle. But the problem is the difference between 99.99999 and 100 is an infinite distance. And there is only one man who has bridged the gap, and only one person who has ever worn flesh and who has ever lived a perfect life, and therein lies our hope. Therein lies our hope is in Jesus Christ himself. And he is the only one that can bridge that gap, and that gap can be bridged on our end when we say, God, I just need you to take it. God, I just need you to take my anxiety. God, I just need you to take my worry. God, I just need you to take my anger. I don't even know where it's coming from sometimes. I don't even know. But I know I need to figure it out. Because I need hope in my life. And these things are a poor substitute for hope in my life. Because this is not based on how good we are or how we do, but it's just based on God. One of the verses that has really spoken to me recently is Psalm 147:10. And it was kind of obscure. I was just kind of reading through the Psalms and just one verse just like, all of a sudden it's in bold print, you know. It's not really, but in my mind it was. And it says this, Psalm 147:10. It says, his pleasure is not in the strength of the horse, nor his delight in the legs of the warrior. The Lord delights in those who fear him, who put their hope in his unfailing love. I love that. It doesn't matter what we do, who we are, what great things we've done, how smart we are, our past, our potential. None of that matters. What matters is our heart. Does our heart long to follow Jesus Christ? Does our heart long to turn over the struggles and the problems of this world to the one that can actually help us and do something about it? Because those that put their trust in his unfailing love, that is where we find our hope. It's just so beautiful. Celebrate Recovery is the steps to this wholeness in Christ. It leads us through this whole surrender process. It starts with, hey, what's going on in your life that you need to turn over? Turn it over to Christ. This is the process to do that. What is going on in your life that has created issues? How do we forgive ourselves? How do we forgive others? And then how do we continue living this way? Celebrate Recovery is that process right there. Whether it's the hurts that we encounter just by living life in this sinful world, things that are done to us, things, the way that people treat us, or is it the habits that we formed because of our coping mechanisms, the way that we've learned to survive, or is it our hang-ups, our unforgiveness of ourselves and of others? Celebrate Recovery is the process by which we begin to heal and experience freedom from these issues that try to control our lives. I've been a part of Celebrate Recovery now for a couple years. And when I went through these steps, I was doing it to help others because, I've never had a chemical dependency issue. It's never been a problem for me, and that's kind of what I thought Celebrate Recovery was about. But oh my goodness, I have definitely had some addictions that have a tendency to displace the worship of God in my life. Since being a part of CR, I have experienced a freedom that I didn't even know was possible. Scripture has completely opened up, and everything is application now. Everything that I read in Scripture is application. And my relationships have changed because now I am not looking for everything that I need from the people around me. But my identity has changed to who God says that I am. And it's a beautiful place to be. Because when we become a people of freedom, we become a people of life. I want to invite my friend Sarah to come up, and she's going to tell you her story about how God has restored her life. So Sarah, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's difficult, and know that I'm praying for you, girl.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm a passionate follower of Jesus Christ. And I struggle with anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol abuse, self-esteem, self-worth, codependency, and now I can add grief to this list of hurts, habits, and hang-ups. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you my full story today of my life, but like any other story, we all have a beginning. And the ending depends on our ending depends on the way that we choose to turn our lives over to God. I'm not going to blame anyone for any of the actions or the choices I have made. Although our childhood does affect our lives, but as we grow up, we have the ability to break the cycle if we choose. Recovery from any hurt, habit, or hang-up comes from hard work and the strength that comes from God. Ephesians 3:19 tells us that all power or strength comes from God. It says, may you experience the love of Christ, though it is too great to fully understand, then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God. My journey turning my life around completely started 6 years ago, and CR come into my life 2 years ago. There was so much insanity in my life that when I finally hit my rock bottom, I was ready to give up everything. I was raised in a little country Baptist church and learned all about God and all he had done. My brother started taking me to church, and I don't know if it was because of the chaos that was going on in my home at the time, for reasons that I was too young to understand. But either way, church was something that I wanted to go to all the time. I remember thinking I must be special to have someone like God who loved me and wanted to spend eternity with me. My parents didn't attend church unless it was vacation Bible school or we had a Christmas play or something like that, although they did believe. My prayer as a little girl was I wanted my parents to go to church. As time went on and I got older, I started moving away from God. Even though He had me from the beginning, the world was so much better. It was fun. It was better than sitting in a church pew on a Sunday morning. When I got my license, church was over for me. I was dating a guy named Jeremy, and Jeremy lived a completely different life. He had never went to church. He was allowed to smoke and go to parties with his older brother. At that time, he introduced me to weed. I didn't like it very well. It seemed like an awful lot of work just to catch a buzz and then to eat and go to sleep. And I didn't want to go to sleep. I wanted to live life. I wanted to see the excitement that I had missed all this time by sitting in a church pew. Right before I graduated high school, he introduced me to cocaine. That was more me. I was up and I didn't miss anything. Jeremy done anything he could and done it whenever. At 19, I found out I was pregnant with Orion. And at this time, Jeremy was in full-blown addiction. I always wanted a baby. So I didn't do anything after I found out I was pregnant with Orion. On Orion's first birthday, we separated. Jeremy went on to have other kids, but his addiction took him away from them as well as Orion for many years. When Orion was around 2, I met Eric. He was a great guy. Funny, handsome, caring, never met a stranger. He was a stand-up guy who took on being Orion's new dad. About a year after meeting Eric, we had Hunter. Eric was a stay-at-home dad and a good one. He taught the boys respect and morals, and he done what needed to be done. He was a great friend to many and my best friend and soulmate. We got married, and later on we had Bryson. But this whole time, even though we went to church occasionally, Eric was a full-blown addict. We masked it, went on, made ways to get by so nobody would really know the truth. I thought we had the perfect relationship. Eric would do good for a while, and then he would be back at it harder the next time. God was still there, though, in the waiting. He took us to church occasionally, and Eric had always believed because he was in church as a child, and he was saved. We attended church when we wanted to at my church, at the church that my parents attended. Because remember, I was that little girl that prayed for her parents to go to church. And now, although I wasn't taking my kids, they were. I always liked going out to bars, loud music, and everything that come with that party life. As Eric got further and further in his addiction, I started drinking on the weekends and sobered up on Sunday afternoon right before my parents would bring the kids home from church. Eric and I would do crack and cocaine together, but when the dope was gone or there was no more money to be spent, I was fine, but he wasn't. He couldn't stop. Bryson was born in 2008 and was sick with RSV. He was airlifted to UK, and we stayed in Lexington. I was not needing or wanting any drugs or anything. I just wanted God to allow me to bring my baby home. Eric wanted the same thing, but his drugs was stronger than he was. When we come home, that was the beginning of the end of our marriage. When we come home with Bryson, I found myself at home a lot with 2 small kids and an infant who wasn't well all the time. Eric continued down on his cycle. And after shooting up for the first time, he come home and told me about it. It was something he said that he would never do, and he did. And he told me then that it had him. So while he was out finding his comfort in his drugs and other people, I turned to another guy. A few months after Eric finding out that I had an affair, we separated and eventually got divorced. We had made the vow to always remain friends and to be co-parents and doing what we could for our kids. Eric and I both moved on, trying to date other people. And even our friends, they would get mad over the relationship we had. Because in the end, no matter what, it was always me and Eric standing together all the way until the end. In 2012, Eric went to jail in a drug bust. When he went to jail, I found myself still struggling, but I was going back to church more. God was a part of my life, but I still liked the occasional weekends of drinking, partying, and having a good time. When Eric got out of jail, he moved back in with his mother. And at the time, I thought that was horrible. But I wasn't ready for him to come home. Matter of fact, I didn't want him to, because I didn't see a change in him or in me. Throughout the time that he stayed at his mom's house, and I continued on my path of destruction, I met this guy named Chris. And boy, did I ignore all the red signs that were there. Everyone was telling me about him, but they didn't know him for sure. For the first time, I can say in all the years that I've known Eric, he was livid. See, after all, he did know Chris. He was a childhood friend with Chris. He knew the way that Chris really was, the way that he treated women. Eric warned me and talked to me about him, but no, I could change him because I was just that person. I could change anybody. I could do whatever. Eric turned out to be the only person he couldn't get me away from. I had friends, plenty of them, but believing the lies that Chris told, they didn't care about me. They weren't true friends. They were out for themselves, and soon they were gone. Eric and I had a great relationship with both sides of our family. My parents would always come over for family meals. Would play in my yard, in my building. It was a great time. But when Chris come along, he didn't have a house, but he come to rule mine. He didn't have a car, so he drove mine. I was at home, alone. My friends were gone. My parents, I knew they loved me. And I knew they wanted what was best for me. And they were looking out for me. But they told lies. And they really didn't care for me. No one would want a daughter like me. A drug addict, a single mom, divorced, someone that walked around with a bad attitude and everything was her way or she would throw a fit. It was nothing for me to stand up and cuss you out or want to fight over the least little thing. But when Chris come along, he was too big for me. I eventually learned to listen and do exactly what he told me to do. And if I disobeyed him, it started out with a little shove or a little small smack on the hand. And then it come to closed-handed hits, shoved down, kicked, hair pulled, dark, and I wore darker makeup every day to cover the bruises. I have scars on the outside, but the biggest scars are the ones that's on the inside. I allowed this man to come into my life and rip away every single thing that I loved in my life, down to the relationship that I had with my kids. I was alone. For the first time in my life, I really felt alone. Eric was the only one that was able to talk to me. And of course, we had to do that in secret because nobody wanted to make Chris mad. Nobody wanted to do anything to set him off, and it was just the least little thing. I had struggled with depression before, and I was on medicine to help me with the depression. It wasn't working enough. Chris introduced me to a pill called Subutex. And man, when I took it, I was fine. Nothing bothered me. I was on top of the world. I continued to be a mom, a doting woman to him, something that looked cute on his shoulder, whatever he needed me to be. The house was cleaned, the kids were taken care of, except for I was still alone. This continued for a few months, and then the Subutex wasn't working anymore. All the pain and the mask that I was wearing started to shine again. Chris was a full-blown addict, one that I had never seen before. I didn't know that anyone could be an evil person like he was. The only time he seemed to be good was when he shot himself up. So one night at home, I was about as low as I could get, scared to death of needles, had been all my life. But I begged him to shoot me up. Maybe then he would be happy and I could do something right. That was all I needed. I was hooked. In the end, I turned out to be nothing for him. I couldn't change him, but boy, he sure changed me. On September the 5th, 2014, my oldest son's 14th birthday, there was a knock on my door when the kids got home from school, and it was CPS. That is when my life took a turn that I wasn't expecting it to take. The only thing I ever wanted to be was a good mother. And I wasn't being, even though I would pretend I wasn't. The drugs had completely took me away from them. But God said it wasn't the end. When they knocked on my door, I was mad. I was angry. Oh, I wanted to fight. I'm sure I'd done a lot of cussing that day. But in the end, it turned out to be for the best. They took my kids. And right then, I decided there was nothing that was worth my kids. They had to be with me. I had to make a phone call that I never wanted to have to make. After all the crap I gave to Eric about the drugs and everything else, here I was on the other end of it now. He was out of jail doing good. He had been clean and sober for quite some time. And I had to call him and tell him that he needed to get with my parents because that's where the kids would be from now on. I got more than one lecture that night. But the very next morning, I was sitting on my front porch and asking God to bring my kids home. And I knew I had a lot of work to do, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't strong enough. Chris had went to jail. And down the road, here comes Eric. For the next few months, even after I got my kids back, Eric walked with me and helped me out of my addiction. Him and God stood behind me. And I can say that I'm standing here today because when God put Eric in my life, he put him there for a season and for one of the best reasons ever. 2020 has been a year. I can't even describe it. It's just stupid. It's one thing right after another, a lot of highs and a whole lot of lows. After I got clean, I got the kids back, life was on the right track, I went back to church. I actually found CrossPoint during this time. 2 years ago, I come to my first CR meeting, scared. Tammy would actually have to come out in the parking lot and walk in with me before I would come in. And then that's when the real work began. I might have started it 6 years ago, but by the time I found CR, or it found me, I already had it all figured out and I didn't need any more help. I was coming to help someone else. But I didn't know at that time that God had a bigger story and a bigger plan for my life. And I was soon to find out that I had a lot of work to do. God took away from CR, I learned that God took away my anger, a lot of resentment, hurt. I no longer had to be ashamed of where I was or this worthless, hopeless drug addict. I never had to depend on the depression or a pill to get through the day, but now I had God to help me get through the days. January 2020. My world totally flipped upside down. The only man that I could say that I ever loved and brought so much joy and peace to my life and helped me with my own addiction lost his life to addiction. He went back out after he helped me. And we all knew for months, we talked about how he would never come back from this one. I remember waking up at nights having dreams of him being on a railroad track. And a voice just keeps saying, it's coming. You can't stop it. And I would sit on the side of my bed and pray for God just to take this pain away from him, to let him get over his addiction, to learn to live without it the same way that he helped me learn to live without it. I prayed for peace for him. I never prayed for him to die. But God has a funny way of answering prayers sometimes. He answered my prayer that January 25th by taking Eric home to be with him. I lost everything that my life meant that morning. The Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And boy, did I need the strength now. Now I was literally a single mom fighting with my own demons. But then CR came once again, just the Thursday after his death. And that night is when I learned I can't fix anyone. We all have choices to make. We all have things that we need to do. But with God, we can do anything. I've learned that Eric made his own choices just the same as I did. I learned that God is always there in the waiting. And even though we get answers and we pray and we want things to be our way, it's really out of our control. Control is one of the hardest things that I had to learn to give up. Because even though I wanted him to be fixed, I still wanted him to be here for my own selfish reasons. This past week, one of our verses, or one of our questions in our step study was, what do you fear about turning everything over to God? And my biggest fear is I don't know the outcome. I was so scared of the outcome. Finally, I had to face reality, and I didn't want to. What if that reality was not the reality that I had in mind? And it turned out not to be. But here I stand today, 6 years later, clean and sober, hoping to lead someone else to Christ through what I have learned in CR. When Eric got killed, I could have went back to drugs and to alcohol and continued that train wreck of a life that I so desperately wanted to leave behind. I have restored relationships with my family. I have got a great support system. I call them my little army. I have a forever CR family, and I'm never alone because God has brought these people into my life. And most importantly, He has come into my life to live, and He will walk with me no matter what. So if you're struggling with anything today, turning everything over to God is hard, and I struggle with it every day. But there is peace at the end of the day knowing that God can take all your pain away and turn you into something beautiful.
Just want to take this time to thank Sarah for sharing her amazing journey with us today. It is not easy at all to stand up in front of anyone and take ownership for what you have done in your life and to ask for the forgiveness and to have the support. At this time, I'm going to ask that you all take this moment with me. At Celebrate Recovery, before we break off into our groups, we do the serenity prayer. And the serenity prayer is there to give us peace, to help us with our faith, and to let us know that God is our support. So I ask that you bow your heads at this time as I go through the complete serenity prayer, and let the words sink in today and see where God is trying to give you peace. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today in our service. And I invite you all to come out on Thursday nights to come to Celebrate Recovery. Maybe you're ready to start on your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Or maybe you're just being called to help serve us at Celebrate Recovery. Whatever that looks like for you. We just invite you to come out on Thursday evenings. As our ushers come forward to dismiss us, we're going to allow those who have children to exit through the side door here to go get your children. And then our ushers will come and dismiss us row by row. Thank you again.